अभी आ रहा है? So last time we did this verse, which is chapter 15, and it saw one thing which was very interesting. It says, there is a banyan tree which is like a samsara tree, okay, and these three gunas that we have are what? Its branches are nourished by the three gunas. So different people have different gunas, and so that means each one has its own individual samsara tree, right? And the gunas that you have, those gunas and then what it says, the sense objects as their shoots are spread out below and above. Okay, so for each guna there is a corresponding object. So let's say you are a sattvic person, you have so many different objects to engage in. You have a rajasic guna, then you have so many different objects to engage in, and tamas, then you have many different, so it will all appear, if you're a sattvic person, you have how many books. You go to any US university and just go to the library. I was amazed at the number of books that exist in these libraries. They are just incredible. So that means there is so much knowledge. You want art or science or art, music, you can spend your lifetime knowing it, okay? Or even if you want to be a good human being and a mature human being, what? There is so much scope. You can always operate at any level. You can always move one step higher, and you can just go on and on and on in your maturity. Okay, so that is what one thing that I just wanted to highlight, and that was I was just telling Namita one story, which was interesting story, because how far you can go in your maturity, there is no end. Okay, so I just want to give you one example that when I was in Rishikesh with my teacher Swamiji, then one day one couple came, one man came, and he told one whole big story of how much he was in trouble and he wanted some money and this and that. So Swamiji told me, he says, you just go in a little bit, find out how much he needs and this and that, and then we'll decide how much we can give. So I use my this intellectual mind and a little rational mind, and I started like asking him questions like what happened and what, and then the way he narrated the whole story, I saw some logical flaws in what he was saying, right? So then I thought that I thought I was very clever, and I was going to tell Swamiji that Swamiji, this story is a little fishy story, it's not like very coherent story, So I thought I was saving Swamiji from being fooled by this person and giving money for something which was not even a real reason or whatever. So I went back to Swamiji and I said, Swamiji, I asked him these questions and things were not really coherent in the story and this and that. And he told me, I know that. I knew that he was lying. I said, you knew that he was lying and you still want to help him? He says, yes. So I said, what? Because our rational mind works in a way that if person is fooling you, you just stop. He says, I'm not interested in just kind of, making the person know that he's lying. I'm interested in bringing about a change in him. And he says that only if he begins to trust me, and if I can somehow indicate to him that in spite of my knowing that he is not doing something right, but I will still help him because I want him to change. That I was like, my God, what is that level of sensitivity which is so much beyond our rational kind of, figure out whether the person is right or wrong and just kind of, tell the person that, hey, ye kya bol rahe ho? Nothing of that sort. He says every criminal will change if you support. And while that process of changing, you have to be accompanying them, and you have to trust, you have to show that you trust them, then that will bring about a change in a person. Okay, so that means even in your sattva guna, how far you can go is no end. Okay, and then for rajas, it's exactly the same thing. You want to be a businessman, there is no end. And then if you want to be a good government administrator, no end. Okay, and tamasic also no end. From what? Just simple non-activity to abuse to adharma. There is you just can go on. So therefore, in any of these three gunas, even if you become sattvic, are you continuing samsara tree or not? You are continuing. Okay. Now the first portion of the Veda, which is what we call Karma Kanda, it also helps you in it's not actually helping you, it's helping you in being more dharmic and more prayerful, and ask for help from the universe for you to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Okay, so therefore it keeps the tree intact. Okay, because it gives you certain rituals and certain prayers to get what you want. They don't tell you this is what you should have or this is what you should desire, but if you have desire for a child, then there is a ritual called Putra Kameshti. If you want to be a very big king, there is a ritual called Ashwamedha. So that means for every desire that you have, there can be obstacles, and those are in form of unknown variables, and they give you different rituals and prayers to help you overcome those rituals, those obstacles, to get what you are looking for. Okay?
You definitely get it, or it increases the percentage?
It is increasing the percentage. So as I told you, every prayer is something which is just one more variable in your getting what you want. So it's a function of your known variables, and one, it just adds. And the more elaborate the prayer is, more it will help. Because in karma, the rule is adhikasya adhikam phalam. The more you do, the more. In any karma, it's like that. Whether if it is just one passing thought of a prayer, or if it is 15 minutes of Rudram chanting, it is going to give a different result. You can't say it is exactly the same. You study for 5 minutes and you study for 1 hour, you will have more result. There is no, it's not something which is special to prayer. It's with every karma works like that. Okay? So therefore, it's one of the variables. Okay. Now, but the point is, your samsara vruksha is continuing. So now, well, how to get out of it? So that was the question for you all, and that is the answer that is given in the next verse. Because no matter what you do, you are within that samsara vruksha. And what is the vision of Gita? It is a moksha shastra. You can get out of it. Why do you want to get out of it? A lot of people say, oh yeah, this is wonderful, just coming and becoming more sattvic, and then you have, it's a more beautiful tree, more beautiful flowers, nice fruits. Why do you want to get out of it? Why do you want to get out of it? Do you want to get out of it?
That was my question. Why? Increasing your good karma, and every new life you'll be in a little better position. What's wrong with that?
Yeah, exactly. So now you guys have to answer. What is wrong with that? I mean, it's true. It's one possibility that you keep on, and that's what, in fact, most of the humanity, they are committed to just becoming better human being, and that's it, right? And then you can have better life or... Excellent, right? So that means what is interesting is our whole Purana is full of stories of people who become better and better and better, and over a period of time, what happens? Along with that goodness, if it is not balanced, what will happen?
Some arrogance will come.
Exactly. So that means the arrogance will come, and that arrogance itself is what a starting of a distortion, and that can lead to what? Your fall. So that means that whole samsara tree is what? up and down and up and down and up and down. Okay? There is no just going up and then up and up. So that means every time you become very intelligent, then also you can become arrogant. You become extremely successful in your business, you can, and that very arrogance will the way you interact with others, the way you make decisions, because then you don't listen to others, then you deprive yourself of inputs of all the other people. So that itself, in that is your downfall. Okay? So this is why getting better and better in samsara is really not, and within that, okay, now let's say you say, okay, I'm going to try really hard to not get into that kind of a arrogance mode or whatever, but I'm going to be as, righteous as possible and as humble as possible. But even then, what happens is that the karma that we all have, infinite karmas, they are all what? Punya and papa. So that means nobody can totally avoid papa. So that means in any birth that you have, every individual will have one's own fair share of what? Happiness and suffering. Okay, so as I told you that you really want something, so that you want son. Everybody is like, yeah. I have a a doctor friend, and he says even till today that when a boy is born, he gets gold coin, and when a girl is born, he gets silver coin. And today, and all South Bombay elites, okay, and say people sometimes come crying to me, and they said, sorry doctor, but this is a tradition and we can't give you, even though you were fantastic or whatever, but we have to give this. I don't know whoever it is, but there are lots of people, he says. Right? So therefore, this whole thing is, okay, now you want son because you think that he's like, yeah, and then what he's going to turn out to be, you don't know. And that, like maybe in his first few years he could be brilliant, and then there can be a decline. Or during the first few years he's a little slow and you are worried, and then all these worries are for no reason, because then he rises. So that means it's all up and down. There is no stability that, okay, you do only punya and you keep going up. Okay, so therefore, then there is there is a very beautiful verse in Bhagavad Gita which talks about these 20 values, and one of the values is Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadhi, Dukkha, Doshanu, Darshanam. The whole process of birth and death itself is fraught with suffering. Why? Because by the time, it's interesting, somebody told me, Nima, now you're 50, over 50, now rest of your life you have to see so many people that you love going, because all the elders are in their 70s, 80s. So that means almost it's interest, and all you start losing everyone one after the other is tough. Okay, that means the going of all the loved ones, and then what, after 20-30 years our own going. Okay, that is not easy. Okay, Janma, Mrityu, and between this Janma and Mrityu there is Jara. Jara means then before that there is old age. Old age means there is a decline. Every function, somebody loses the hearing capacity, sometimes your eyes, sometimes all the organs don't work as efficiently. So that means there is this old age, then Vyadhi. Even then you can say, okay, now who cares about old age? Old age is going to come later, always feels it will come later. Okay? Then there is Vyadhi, disease. Afflictions, physical afflictions and mental afflictions. Nobody can avoid. Okay? So that means this samsara tree, by definition, is what? Your whole attempt is to what? Be happy and more and more and more happy by engaging in these objects. Because for every disposition that you have, there are corresponding objects. So your attempt is to be happy, but that happiness really, if you think, what kind of happiness you want? Permanent happiness. But what does it give you? Temporary. Just some glimpses. It's not like it's only bad. Please understand. If it was only bad, we'll all be like, we'll lose our capacity to laugh. It is good. Sometimes are good.
These objects are external.
Exactly. So that means the world is set up in a way, please understand, okay, that your natural tendency, you come with a desire to be complete, to be adequate, to be fulfilled. And world is set up in a way that you have all these different objects and you have your sense organs and you also have your disposition. And according to your disposition, you are going to engage in the world for what? Not just for engagement's sake, but for your own happiness. But that happiness, which is a permanent happiness that you are looking for, will always elude you because it's not there. So the whole thing is a setup for you to, in one given birth, recognize I'm looking in a wrong direction. What I want is a fulfillment, and I'm looking for what? Fulfillment through objects. It's a wrong orientation. By this process, I'll never get it. If I don't get it by this whole process, then can I say that I then have to give up this whole idea that my whole life is oriented towards what? Making me fulfilled. Can I just give it up? No. There is a solution, but the solution is in another direction altogether. That is what we call Moksha Shastra. That is what we call felling this samsara tree. Otherwise, this tree will continue. You become more sattvic, more objects, continue. But in that continuation, there is what?
Permanent happiness is not there.
Not there.
You'll get more or less.
Exactly. You'll get more. Of course, there are people who are relatively better off. There are people who are relatively worse off. It's true. But your search is for lasting fulfillment. That this tree cannot give. Okay, so then the whole Moksha Shastra. So this is why any self-help seminar that you. Sorry, but there is a result. There is a solution, but the solution is in a totally different manner than what you think. Where you are looking for solution, there is no solution. But that doesn't mean there is no solution. There is solution, but in another direction. That's why it is not depressing. That's why it's clever. In one lifetime, if you can figure out the nature of solution is somewhere else, and if you can actually understand that, and if you can align yourself to that, then you're free. That is what we call moksha. Okay, so now how do you, so figuratively, how do you not stay within the tree, but what? Come out of the tree, or fell the tree. Samsara Vruksha, which is moksha. How? It is explained in the next verse. Beautiful verse. So now all your suggestions about what exhausting karma, as Rajiv says, it's impossible. Because you have infinite karma, and every birth you exhaust some karma, and what will happen? You also gain some more. So that process of exhausting karma is not possible. Nobody can exhaust karma because its account is anadi. then as Namrata said, what did Namrata say? That, oh, you just kind of observe. Can you live your whole life just observing and not acting? Not possible. So this is why all these techniques people show that, yeah, you just observe what is going on in your mind and all. You can't live your life by that. Because every point you have to make decisions. Whether it's your business or your personal life, you have to decide what you are going to do. You can't just be a kind of a disinterested observer. Nobody can live like that. And your decisions have repercussions on so many different things. Even passivity, you just say, okay, I'm going to be passive, I'm not going to do anything. That also is an action. And by not doing something that you are supposed to do, you can cause a lot of damage. So that means observing also is not a possibility. Then what is? How do you get out? Any ideas? Otherwise, I will go to the next verse.
Come on, hurry up.
Hurry up. Okay. Okay. I have to build it up. Otherwise, everybody will, yeah, okay, now there's one more verse and then now what's the next? It's not like that. Right? So you need to feel puzzled and then I give answer, then it sticks.
That you've been doing from last weekend.
Okay. So now you've thought enough and you can't find the answer. So now the next verse gives the answer. Okay? Which is an ingenious way of getting out of this samsara tree. Sorry?
The 15th?
The 15th, third.
The third, no?
Yeah, the third.
15th third verse gives
The answer. The second verse describes samsara tree and says that this guna, the sattva, rajas, tamas keeps you within samsara tree. Now, the solution is what? Beautiful solution. Na rupamasyeha tathopalabhyate nanto na chadir na cha sampratishtha ashvattamenam suvirudha moolam asanga shastrena dridena chitva. Beautiful. Okay. So it says, now this samsara tree, now imagine if you start just cutting a branch, or if you start taking out some leaves or some fruits, or even take out that trunk, will you fell the samsara tree? No. You exactly. As long as the roots are there, it will regenerate itself. Right? But the roots are interesting because the roots are not seen by you. What is seen by you is till the trunk. So that means to figure out all this is what I can see, but the root is something which I cannot really see, but to figure out that there is a root on which the tree is standing, and then it, because of this root, then it will continue. Okay, so now this whole karma, the whole samsara tree is based on what? Karma. Right? You have infinite karma, and that gives infinite different births. Okay? So now, in order for this whole karma to continue, you need who? You need karta. Karta means the doer. The doer then enjoys the result of the action. So that means, as long as you think you are the doer, what will happen? The samsara tree. Absolutely. Even non-action is still a karma. Because you don't act in a given situation, and with what you are supposed to do, you will get result for that. Because you will do something else, and that is an inappropriate thing to do. Right? So that means the whole samsara tree is what the root cause is what? Your conclusion about yourself that I am the doer. That is the root cause. As long as you think you're the doer, what will happen? The result will accrue to you. No way to get out of it. This whole knowledge, Brahma Vidya, what does it do? It questions, are you the doer? Am I the doer? This whole thing of what is my true nature, where did it start? Where did it start? Huh? Exactly. Who am I? The whole thing started with who am I? So where is this doership? Tell me. The sense of doership is where will you attribute it? In the mind.
What the roles you play?
It's the roles that you play, it's in the mind. Absolutely. So as I told you that there is a mechanism within one of the functions of the mind, which is what we call ahankara. Ahankara, please take out that it's bad. There is nothing bad about ahankara. It's a function. It's a function of mind which has this whole thing as different thoughts, whether they are emotions or whether it's a cognitive capacity or your memories, they all get attributed to your I thought. So that's why even though in one day you can have 60,000 different I related thoughts and all contradictory. One day you can say I'm happy, next day or next minute you can say I'm not happy. So these are all I related thoughts. Okay? So this I has become an entity, and that I looks through the sense organs and all at the world and decides what should I do. So that means lifetimes go thinking this is who I am, which is what? Ahankara, which is one of the faculties of the mind and which is not your true nature. This is why knowing yourself is the only way to get out of this samsara tree. There is no other way. Now, what does Vedanta show you? That this mind is something which is what? A changing mind. Then, why have you come with that given mind? Because of your karma, because of your this karana sharira, which are also the roots. Okay? So now whole thing is negated, and what does Vedanta show you? That neither you are the physical body, nor you are the mind, nor you are karana sharira. Who are you? Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Okay? So what is this Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma? Exactly. So that means you are, all different conditions of the mind are changing constantly. Okay? There is a light of consciousness because of which you can what? See everything. Now what happens? You forget the presence of the consciousness. What do you see? Only the objects, only the thoughts. So just to give you an analogy, one of the persons who was visiting, she attended my Manjukudi retreat. She's a German, and she used one analogy which I liked. She says that imagine there is a table, right? Now you need the presence of light to be able to see the table. But when the light is there, what happens? You only focus on the table. You forget what? The light which makes it possible for you to see the table. Beautiful. And that light is always uninvolved with what? Any object that it lights up. Awareness is like that. The invariable presence, because of which you can see what? Changing thoughts, whether they are your emotions or they are your what? Your cognitive, what you understand, or your memories, or even your eye sense, which is also constantly changing. there is that presence of awareness which we miss out. Our focus is only on the thoughts, like the table, objects. Okay, so Upanishads point that out, and it makes us see the fact, hey, that all these are objects. What is real Atma is what? That awareness, Chit, consciousness. That consciousness is, it's Sat. And that consciousness is Anantam. It's not something which is what only in your body, residing in your body. It is something which is what? All pervading. It doesn't have, it seems like I showed several times, like bottle space, it seems to be confined, but actually it is not confined. The minute you understand I am awareness, what happens to your doership? Doership is just one function. You don't need to do anything with it. You just put it at its right place. What is it? It is one part of the function of your mind. Doership, right? That I sense, which then connects with different functions and then thinks this is who I am and decides to engage in the world, is only what? A function of the mind. And who are you? Are you function of the mind? No, you are awareness. By doing that, what have you done? You have falsified Karta as your essential nature. You understand that?
It's like an actor performing a role.
Excellent. Wonderful. Okay? It is like actor performing a role. That awareness in this birth has come with this little instrument. What is this little instrument? The body and mind. In that little instrument, you can either you can think I am as good as the body and mind and live in the world, because the minute you say I am as good as the body and mind, you become highly limited. You become only this little individual. The minute you become highly limited, your whole attempt is to what? Find freedom from limitation. And what do? You engage in objects to find freedom from limitation. And you go on for cycles of birth. And then there is no solution. In one lifetime, what happens? You say that, hey, this, through Vedanta Shastra, you figure out that this little function of mine, I am not. I am what? Sat and Chit and Anantam, which has as though connected with one given body, mind, sense complex. Then, as Nirmala says, what happens? You don't know, you don't need to disown this. Do you need to disown this? Do you need to destroy? Do you need to do anything physically to this body, mind, sense complex? No. You just understand, yeah, it's just a shift. It's a cognitive shift. Just based on reality. Now this very individuality which you took to be the reality about you, which then posed a problem because it gave you sense of limitation, now it becomes a privilege. Because who are you? You are that limitless awareness who has come with relationship with one given body, mind, sense complex. Enjoy it. Enjoy it. Fun. You can use this.
Can you say you're a part of a whole?
If you take yourself to be the body and mind, then you're part of the whole. Awareness has no parts. Like the space has no parts. It's a whole, undivided whole.
I'm having a little difficulty visualizing. Now I have to mind body I'm doing things. Finally I can watch. So I'm just awareness. I'm just finding it difficult getting myself out of this body and just being awareness doing what, or
see, but
what happens after that? I mean, am I just some awareness somewhere up there living? I mean,
okay. Now,
what is the next stage?
It's a bit
yeah.
abstract, no?
So,
This idea.
see, the thing is that this is the reality. The thing is that there is a basic relationship between subject and object. Okay, awareness is the subject I. Everything is object of awareness. What is the nature of mistake we make? Something which is an attribute of an object, I impute it on awareness. So that is the nature of problem. So that means the freedom that I'm searching for my whole life is what? It's my true nature, because subject is always free from what? Attributes of object. Always free. Like the light never gets affected by whether it is what? The well water which is contaminated or a clear water. It will just do the job of showing. Okay, now, but in order for me to understand this reality and own up to this reality, I can't go from tamasic to understanding this reality. I have to what? Graduate to sattvic, because the mind is the place where all the knowledge takes place. So if you have a contaminated, confused mind, which is all confused with lots of things, you can't get it. Because it seems like, oh my God, what is this?
What we are trying to say is that with this shift, the way we will engage in this world and go about in this body, our engagement, that moves in our gunas. We start clearing that water and get.
Excellent. So what Nita is asking is, in fact, that in order to really understand this whole Brahma Vidya, you need to prepare yourself. With a mind which is clouded and all, you can't understand this reality. So therefore, you begin to what? Undo all the confusion at many different levels. So this is the whole topic of Yoga Shastra. Unless you do that, you will not be able to understand this reality. So that means the very fact, if there is a person who has already understood this reality, it assumes that the person has what? Worked on oneself to make the person as sattvic, as aligned with the universe, as dharmic as it is possible, right? To be able to understand this reality. So that means once the person becomes wise, all those things are already taken care of. The person will use this given body and mind what? Responsibly, right? And with all, the person is exhibiting all the noble gunas already as a preparation. As a preparation for this knowledge. So this is why I keep saying the subject matter of Bhagavad Gita is what? Brahma Vidya and Yoga Shastra. Two separate subject matter. One is the reality about yourself, which is already there. Awareness is always free. And the second is what? Your whole preparation. Every attitude of ours is all little confused, right? The very fact that we are at times swayed by anger, these are all distortions. Sadness, fears, all kinds of fears we have. Sometimes people don't have sense of dharma. These are all what? Problems where? In the mind. You need to correct it. That's why so much of Bhagavad Gita is all about what? Right attitudes, right values, karma yoga, It's all about that, because without this, knowledge will not take place. So imagine you want to fix this bigger vision, and here it's all shaky. Will you be able to? It has to have a foundation and alignment right from the top, then only what? The right from the bottom, in order for the top to sustain itself. So you're aligning at this day-to-day level is an essential part of what you're understanding this bigger picture. Without this alignment, bigger picture will always remain hazy. Okay. Now, the second part is a very important part of learning this. Okay. Now, this is what this verse is saying. Okay. Now what I have shown you is that this awareness is something which does not have any spatial limit. It's all pervading, and it's not even divided. The bodies don't divide awareness. It's undivided. Okay. Now, what is the relationship of objects? Which are what objects? What are the objects? Physical body, subtle body, then what? The causal body. What is the relationship of all these different bodies, which is what? The stone. Now, what is the difference between living being and non-living being? Exactly. The living being have what? Sthula Sharira, which is physical body. Sukshma Sharira, because of which what? Your eyes can see, your mind can think, your prana works, right? And also we have what? Causal, which is all the karmas. Now this given table, it has what? Sthula. Sthula form is there. The gross form is there. What is not there? The subtle and causal is not there. That's why it's not able to get up and say, I'm tired, I want to go to Gateway of India. It's not able to do that. Okay? So therefore, but everything, the whole universe is what? Subtle, physical and causal bodies. So now you have to find out what is the relationship between awareness and what? Physical body, subtle body and causal body. What is the relationship? Because now you have freed awareness from everything else, and you have said it's all pervasive. But what it pervades, they are all still there or not? They are there or not?
So it starts dictating the way your physical and subtle body function and changes your causal body, because obviously
it's because, okay, wonderful. So now, what is the are they two totally independent realities? No. So this is where this whole thing of now bring back to your mind everything that I have taught. Satya Mithya comes in. The whole teaching culminates in that this physical body is what? The body that I think I am, that body itself is what? Here, samsara vruksha na rupa masyeha tathopalabhyate. When you begin to inquire into the truth of the body, the whole body what? Disappears. It becomes atoms. Absolutely. The whole, just by inquiry. Right? So that means the very body is what? It's one name, body.
Dependent reality?
The whole thing is a dependent reality. And within that dependent reality, what in Sanskrit they call namni namani. You have one name. What is the one name? Body. Body itself is constituting of what? Namani. Several parts. What are the different parts? Hands, legs, whatever, back, whatever. Now the hand itself is again one name, itself is what? Namani. Then that one thing, again billions of cells. Namni, Namani. The whole Vruksha, the whole samsara, which is what? Physical body, what the whole, not only my physical body of everyone, forms within forms, within forms, within forms, and ultimately what? Particles. And those, any quantum physicist will tell you that after a while, at the quantum level, there are no real substance, it's just concepts. Exactly. So concepts, right? So therefore, that whole universe, which is the physical body, then now what Vedanta says? Vedanta says, now if you collapse all the physical body, it goes to just finally a concept. Then you have to, what is remaining is awareness. Right? Because that's not physical body. What is the relationship between concept and awareness? Exactly. Excellent. The concept itself resolves in awareness, and awareness alone remains. Atma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Rishis. Okay, so that means you can't, if you try to uproot the tree, which is a samsara tree, it's impossible. Where will you collapse? Can you collapse? Can you uproot this whole samsara, which includes what? All physical bodies, all subtle bodies, all causal bodies. It's impossible. The only way you can do it is asanga shastrena dridena chitva. Just by your inquiry. Your inquiry, which is dispassionate inquiry. See the reality. Because we have given so much reality to this. It's not easy when it gets, collapsed. We are not comfortable. It seems abstract. But this is how things are. So if this is how things are, and our concocted way of looking at things is different, you have to slowly what? Uproot it. And begin to see that this is what the reality is.
So you use your mind to negate the mind.
Yeah, exactly. And this is exactly that beautiful song that you sing. It's all about that. Mana buddhi ahankara chittani na aham. I am not this buddhi. I am not this intellect. I am not this mind. I am not this memory, and I am not this sense of I.
So, dumb question, but like animals who don't have cognitive abilities would never really be able to get into it.
Excellent. So that means, wonderful. So that means in order to figure out the whole truth of the universe, you need a mind which is what they call human mind is capable of doing that. So in this life, those people are not given the opportunity. So this is why they say human birth is for moksha. Because you are given that capacity to figure it out. They are given the chance to figure it out. In many other, in fact they say even in devas, you are predominantly, everything is wonderful and you are just enjoying. There is no moksha opportunity. Human birth is for moksha, meant for moksha. Why? Because there is little struggle and there is also pleasure, and you have a very developed mind which is able to figure out things. So they say that if you are born as a human and you are given this possibility and you leave the world not figuring it out, then what will happen? It's a wasted opportunity. That's why human birth is considered to be a very exalted birth. Highest birth. Because in this birth, the possibility of moksha is there. And what is interesting is, it seems as though we are all studying this and it's highly intellectual. You know, there was this, recently Shivratri came and I went to this, near ISKCON there is a Shiva temple. So I went there and on a loudspeaker, human, manushya ka janma moksha ke liye hai. People, thousands of people are standing in the line, they all hear it. What they understand, what they don't understand is one thing, but the psyche is what? And what? Then there was something of, your Bhagwan se jud ke mukti milegi. So that means that Bhagwan is what? All these different laws that you need to align to. So it's bhakti, but in that is this whole vision. Because for us, Bhagwan is not some entity sitting out there, it is in form of all the different laws of dharma, laws of karma, laws of everything. You need to align to that.
It's only the person who inquires as to what is the meaning of what this person is saying, what is this song saying. You need to.
Absolutely.
Then you will be able to.
Then you can figure it out. You can dissect and you can decode the whole thing to figure out. Otherwise, it just remains some idea, some, that's true.
And even that depends on your causal sort of stage.
Absolutely.
Because everyone is in different stages of.
Yeah, absolutely. But what is interesting is that this land, this knowledge in various stages, it is available. And that's why people call India what? Spiritual. People come from all over the world for spiritual solutions. Why? Because we live, it's not just in the books, the whole culture. It is somehow, it's there. At a very deep level, it's there. How much you understand, how much you don't understand is another thing. But it is very much there. When I was in Bangkok, I saw there was an international film festival and there was a movie on Kabir, and it was amazing. Kabir's dohas are just talking about Vedanta. It's all Vedanta. And what it showed was something which was interesting. It showed that, some in small villages, panwalas, all these simple people, after the day's work, they all gather around and they sing Kabir's dohas. So that means, imagine that you're singing all this. It seeps in. So it's like Narsi Mehta.
Every level there is something available.
Absolutely. At every.
When you have something to appease your inquiry,
Then.
and there is the field worker.
The whole culture, it's at every level it is available.
What life.
Exactly. It's available.
And various ways.
In various ways, in dance forms, all music. I told Namita that I went to Gundecha Brothers concert at NCPA. There was one song in which he was talking about, the entire song was Mandukya Upanishad. Using Omkara and explaining the meaning of Omkara. The whole song was like that. After the concert I went to, and I and Surya were like, oh my God, he's just singing whole Vedanta. And this whole harmony of, this ragas and all, and we were like elated. Right? Because we generally relate to it at this cognitive level. Now here it was music, melody and all, and we understood the meaning of it, and we were like, oh my God, what is this? After the concert, we went to him and we said, yeah, this song was all Mandukya Upanishad. He's looking at us. He has no clue.
That's the beauty of it.
That's the beauty. He is rendering it.
And possibly even doing it.
and possibly even living it, but its real meaning also still eludes it. It eludes him. Amazing. Okay, so now this whole thing is the only way, which is what now you have collapsed the entire physical, all physical bodies into awareness. What about subtle bodies? Mandukya Upanishad. What about subtle bodies? Subtle body is
what enables you
yeah.
to hear sound, sight.
Exactly. There is one simple thing which is, look at one of the important part of subtle body is what? Your mind. Right? That's a major part of your subtle body. So mind is nothing but thoughts. So now you examine the relationship between awareness and thoughts. Thoughts, exactly. When I think about the tree, absolutely. When I think about a tree thought, what is essentially the content of this thought? There is awareness with that given form. Can you have a thought without the awareness? It's not possible. The thought is like the table and awareness is like the wood. Thought of a tree, it has a given shape. Like here, the table has a shape. But what is the content of that thought? The content of this table is wood. Wood permeates, it pervades the whole table. But pervading it, it is free from the dimensions of the table. The height belongs to the table, the width belongs to the table, the length belongs to the table, but not to the wood. Thought is equivalent to what? The form, the thought form, that of a tree. But what is the content of that tree thought? Can you have without what it is? Awareness plus that given form. That plus is not a real plus, right? It's awareness which takes what that thought, the form of tree without actually taking it. How do you know that it doesn't actually take on? Because next minute when you think of a cow, does the tree stick to it? No. The third minute you think of a friend, does cow and the tree stick to it? No. So that means the relationship between mind, which is thoughts, and awareness is what? The thought cannot exist without awareness, but awareness is what? Independent of thoughts. So that means, what have you done? Not only the physical, all the physical bodies you have collapsed in awareness, all the subtle thoughts, which is whether it is a mind of a criminal or it is a mind of what? Whoever. It's what all collapses in this awareness. Everybody's mind, in the past, in the present, and in the future. Please understand, we are not talking about something small here. Then, the causal. What is the relationship between the causal? Now, because the whole universe is what? Three bodies: physical, subtle, and causal. What is the causal? It's the karma that you have in your account, and your account is different, your account is different, my account is different. So there are how many? Some billions and billions and billions of karmas total, right? Adding all up. Now this karta itself is mithya. So what accrues to? Exactly. So that means what accrues?
Have gone and mucked it up with the criminals.
No. It's your account. It's only your account. right? So that means, because you are
But
figuring out.
karma you are saying is
No. So no, what I'm saying is, 1 minute. It's true that it is awareness is undivided whole, but still this bottle has a given, right? So it's not that that bottle is as though confined to that space. So that means now the whole universe is collapsed in this awareness. That's what I want to show. It is not that your karma gets mixed with my karma. That's not what I'm saying. Whoever, there are different entities, different physical bodies, different subtle bodies. It's not like when I collapse all the physical bodies into awareness, I confuse myself with Neeta's body. It's not that. Right? My body remains my body, Neeta's body remains Neeta's body, but her body also gets collapsed in awareness, and my body also gets collapsed in awareness. Similarly the karma. It's not like my karmas get transferred to you, it's not that.
It's a banking problem.
Yeah, then it would be a huge banking problem. Right? It's not like my subtle body will change to your body, that's not. But my subtle body will collapse in awareness, and your subtle body will also collapse in, every body will collapse in awareness. Now, the final thing is causal body. So even just the acting is, but the action itself is mithya, then the result is also what? Mithya. All causal bodies also collapse in awareness. Na rupamasyeha tathopalabhyate nanto na chadir na cha sampratishta. The whole pratishta, the whole samsara vruksha is existing till the time that you inquire into it. The minute you inquire into it, the whole thing collapses in one reality. Advaita Vedanta. Vedanta Shastra, which will fell the whole tree. Because when you begin to inquire into this whole samsara, which is what? Bodies, objects, interactions, the interactions bringing different experiences, the whole thing collapses in what? Awareness.
So every time you experience a karma, you realize it is a mithya.
You don't need to actively, if a physicist understands that this table is atoms, it's not like every time I'm putting, I have to constantly say, yeah, this is atoms. You understood. It's not like you constantly have to remind yourself. Once you understand what, it's like actor and a role. While an actor is playing role of a beggar, does every minute he keeps saying this is a role, this is a role, this is a role? No. That very knowing gives what? That freedom. Okay? And that freedom doesn't mean that he's indifferent to the role. He can act even better. He's not bogged down by the role. Now, if an actor starts believing I'm a beggar, what will happen? He'll be miserable. But if that actor knows that, hey, this is one little role that I'm playing, but I'm much more than that, in that knowledge comes the freedom.
So in the awareness of that this human form is to purpose, is your chance to go towards moksha or to attain
To even
moksha.
actually to figure it out. Anybody can figure it out during this lifetime.
All what you are doing and preparing yourself is to go back to that awareness, to be to your true form, that you are the awareness.
Yeah.
And whatever happens in this is helping you to clear. With that consciousness, you are trying to clear yourself, get into a clearer and clearer mind.
Excellent. Exactly. Right? So that means the whole life is lived. Generally what happens is, what is the end of life? The goal of life? More money, more power, more pleasures. That is what people are looking for. Now, as what Neeta says is, the minute you begin to understand in this lifetime that is endless, it will not give me what I'm looking for. Even dharma, being a good human being, still may not give me all you're still in the samsara vriksha, right? So then it is moksha which I want. Now moksha also, there are so many people who are spiritual. And Namita came to our Rishikesh retreat, and there was this spiritual healer. And there are hundreds of people like that. She comes on TV, she's some star. Right?
She's very scary.
So, but they are all spiritual people. Don't think that they are all into Vedanta or what they are doing. Somebody is cleaning the aura, somebody is giving you some blue light you have to meditate on. They are all funny, all thousands of practices. When I was in the US in 80s, there were all these spiritual magazines, and each page had all these different practices, and each one promising some amazing things, that then there is this somebody who says there is some meditation which will help you to get rid of all your whatever past negativity. All magic oriented, quick fix, nothing works. You finish that, then you go to somebody else who promises something else. Endless. So now, in one lifetime, if you figure out that all these are what? Funny things. Okay?
Unfortunately, when it works, you go to something and it works, and you get entrenched into it because it's worked, and you forget, and then you hold on to it.
Then you hold on for a while, then it doesn't solve it, then you have to still now look for something else.
More money.
I just want a question. So we have a physical body, the subtle body, the carry, causal. So can I infer that after this birth, I'm reborn? So my causal body will be like a memory base or a data bank of all my previous births, my evolvement, how much I've evolved, and I will probably continue from that level of evolvement to.
Okay, that's a good question. There is a that's a good.
If you get this understanding, you don't have to go through that.
Why is that?
Yeah, no, that's what
you're
Tushar is
true.
saying is right. Yeah.
If you continue with whatever, that cycle will go on. Huh? So you're back in the cycle. What we are trying to do here is to see whether we can move out of that also.
But there is, even this, this Vedanta Shastra, the fact that you're coming here and listening to the Shastra which is not adulterated by any other thoughts and any other, itself is a result of so much punya. So much punya, because you can be listening to Gita and getting what all detachment messages, and you have to give up things and no desires and some funny messages, right? So even that is what, it's a little distortion of this the whole teaching, which is a brilliant teaching. Okay, so that means that you can get ahead.
I hope he's listening.
Right? So therefore, even to come to Vedanta Shastra, which is a proper Shastra, itself is a result of some amazing amount of punya. It's not available. It's not that it's not available because we don't want to make it available. But you have to be interested, right? And in order, it will not, the whole teaching will not resonate with you if you are not ready for it.
I must have done punya in my last.
Lots and lots of punya. Exactly. It is definitely.
Yeah, why so many people come and they don't come?
Yeah, then they don't come. So one obstacle after the other.
And finding the right teacher.
Yeah. So important. Because the whole starting point is very different. The starting point is what? You're already full. You're already complete.
But it's the knowledge.
And it's just a knowing that reality and preparing yourself for knowing that reality. That becomes a whole life mission, as Nita said. Right? So that means it is connected to how you live your day-to-day life, the decisions that you make. It's not removed from that. Right? It's not like, I'm awareness, and it's not like that. Because when it comes to making choices, how are you aligned to dharma? Are you aligned to dharma or not? Right? Or when it comes to certain emotions, how are you dealing with those emotions? Are you able to somehow see the implicit distortion within those emotions and correct, or just let it be? All this is all part of growing up. That's why it's a very awareful living. It's not just you get this, start floating in some idea or some concept of I'm whole and all. It's not that.
That is more difficult than
Yeah. So that means it's like, but the whole life becomes beautiful. It's just that I am the whole, and I have to align, prepare myself and align at all these different levels to own up to this reality, which is already who I am. Now, in this, there is a question that Arjuna asks Lord Krishna. And he says, in this lifetime, I have started, and not only maybe he, in order to receive this teaching from Lord Krishna, he must be a very, very evolved human being. But in spite of that, he says, what if I leave this world not totally figuring it out? The whole thing. Not totally, right? I'm in the process, I'm getting there, but not the whole total clarity and total alignment. So what happens? And then Lord Krishna answers by saying that anything that you have learned, now this is what a life of a jiva, which is what constantly within samsara tree. Any attempt that you have made towards moksha shastra, which is what fell the tree, rather than continuing in the tree, will not go waste. There is a beautiful verse. It says you will come back and you will be connected to this knowledge. This is a
Is that the possible?
Yeah, the causal body has all these different karmas, but in your causal body there are so many different karmas. What comes is not like in some progression. Here, once you come to this, only a given set will combine together, which will then help you in this pursuit. Until you come to this knowledge, jiva keeps going up and down and up and down. And this is why you read a story of not story, there's a book by Many Lives, Many Masters, or some Columbia, Brian Weiss, right? He's a Columbia psychiatrist, and just by chance, he was doing some therapy and he got into past life regression. And all these his patients are telling some stories. They're all random stories. One time I was born in Egypt, then I was born in Greece, then I was in here, and it just goes on and on and on. And I said, what's so interesting about this? You just go on. And in this case, somebody killed me. Then in this case, I had a fight with my wife. And in this, my child died. I mean, all funny stories, and it just goes on and on and on. So that means this whole thing is up and down and up and down. It's not just like going in there is no direction. When you when you begin to understand that moksha is the end, and my maturity is what I need to get in order to get moksha, your whole life gets direction. Otherwise it's just doing whatever. Time pass.
And I guess it's according to all, like you said, your karmas, that at what stage in your life you come into this gear towards this.
Yes.
Whereas somebody starts at age 15 and somebody
Absolutely.
starts at
60.
And it just
and somebody starts just out of curiosity.
Very early in your life. You need to have gone through certain amount of.
So like I met my.
But that's why your teacher told you go and live your life.
He did. He did.
There are so many who are just bumming away, and so many who are just going to different gurus. Obviously, there is something which they are also there. They feel that there is something more to seek in this life, and not just what the kids are sitting in colleges and bumming away and not doing. There are kids who are going for satsang, after physics, Rakesh Pai, so many. They are able to find some answers because
No, but
they're
I
seeking
think
something.
there is something to be said for having experienced the worldly and then keep drawing from the
Correct. So their
experiences in
inferences
this knowledge.
and their environment will change
Yeah.
with their experiences and age appropriate. But that they are seeking at a younger age.
So like she said, you have to get less of the tamas and rajas and get to and then you'll be able to be mentally ready to receive this. No?
Absolutely.
How will you mentally receive it?
You receive it very differently.
Yeah.
At each stage your understanding is good.
Yeah.
Even you started eating at some point of time, something is great. That's why you're going to the house.
Yeah, exactly. And then you also keep going to different people till the time that you.
It's like
Yeah.
even with music, you can learn a rag every year to be different and you get something more subtle from it, something more subtle from it. So in the early stages, it's still useful because it just gives you that basic skill.
Perfect way of
So, and I think if a child, actually a child, if they
the
expose to
refinement
all-
keeps
the
coming.
refinement keeps coming.
With your life experiences, the refinement in that thought process.
Mhm.
And
It keeps
it's
coming.
rag.
Okay. So.
Khalil Farah.
Okay. So. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Yeah. Hey, you guys are coming? No, you're not coming. Sorry? Namrata is coming. You're not coming. Pastor. Yeah.
Sunday is the 12th. Agitation, so the 4 days.
Is not. So there are people, yeah, so that means they must have done a lot of work with reference to this growth in the past life. So they already come with a certain disposition and all that, So they are all these people, and some of them can know this reality, far ahead. Some of them can have, like for example, this Kabir, or there is a Gujarati poet called Narsi Mehta or Mirabai. You read their poems, they are just talking about Vedanta. It is just amazing. It is beautiful. Or in this particular life, they get moksha. So they can get moksha.
I don't think we will know neither. How will we?
You want to come for battlefield?
That's what I've just given them for tomorrow. Then
Oh, you are going tomorrow? Okay. Today. But today I have to ask Surya.
Today, not tomorrow. Saturday also will not work. So thanks, but no.
You're running? Bye. Bye. See you guys. You're all running.